Okay, so in this video, I just wanted to give you a brief overview of my WPL D12 and how I've set that up for a 540 motor using a 2 or 3S LiPo. So, of course, you can't fit a 540 motor in one of these as standard. So my solution to this is I've taken the rear end from an old Mardave V12 that I had, and I have adapted this to fit the original WPL chassis. So what I've done there is I've removed some of the lugs on the original chassis to make room for some custom brackets. So that's hinged on there, and if I can just lift this up, what you should see there is on the bottom I've made a cutout here just to give the motor somewhere to sit and give it a little bit of suspension, which you'll see how I've set up shortly. And yeah, as you can see, that's how it works. So, I can't remember the size of the pinion, but it's a decent sized pinion onto the spur there. Direct drive is not going to snap like the plastic or even metal drive shafts might with a standard setup. So, because obviously this is handling a lot more power than a standard WPL D12, I've done a few things, but one of which is I've actually epoxy filled the chassis. So I'm not sure how much difference this will make in the real world, but it did indeed make the chassis somewhat stiffer, and I'm hoping will make it a little more resilient. And I have been able to use it a fair amount and not break anything yet, touch wood. So it's a Hobbywing 10BL60 brushed ESC in there, just running a Hobby King GT2R receiver, no different from the Sky RC of the same type. And I'm using the standard WPL steering servo as well. I was intending to upgrade this for a Metal Gear servo, however the one I bought doesn't fit, so I won't be doing that yet. Okay. So onto the body here, I've not made many modifications at all. I do intend to put some different wheels on this, front and back at some point, but I'm just currently waiting for parts to arrive. At which point I probably will need to cut out the wheel arches and just do a few other small mods. On the rear bed here, you might notice there's a couple of small holes, and what that's actually for is, just so happens, the Turner's Rapid slots in there perfectly, and doing this allows me to connect the battery from the bottom of the truck, and keep all the wiring nice and neat. So there is a little line on here. I just need to cut out a groove so I can put a Velcro strap on this. I'll just try not to crash it too hard in the meantime before I do that. Okay, so other things that I've changed on this, very, very basic, but just to get some sort of extra suspension on the front, because what I'm finding is that with the extra speed, it just tends to nose plant and bottom out on most things whenever you come across a bump. So I actually bought these for my WPL C24, but decided against them as I wasn't getting as much flex as I did with the original shocks. So I've repurposed them for the D12. So on the front here, I've just got, hopefully you can see this, I'm using the little adapters that you get for the C24 and the like, just as a bracket there to help some strength, holding the shock into what will be the wheel arch. Okay, and just in the middle there's a little light control unit, just so I can still use the front lights. You might have noticed that I have also wired some backlights in as well. Okay. Something else very minor, but just worth doing, I think, entirely, is on the steering arms here. I've just taken a few spare screws here with a decent size sort of washer head on them, and I've just screwed them into the top, straight in there, didn't bother to put any thread on it or anything, it self-taps just fine. The idea being is that this should hopefully stop the steering arms, or turnbuckles I should say, from just falling out. It's been a couple of times where I've been driving and just lost steering, and the cause of it was these popping off here. So hopefully that won't happen now, just a small update. Okay, so I'm just going to put this back together so I can show you how it looks in one piece and how the suspension works. Okay, so parts of the rebuild are a little bit finicky because of the extra cables and such. You may have also noticed that the wiper has fallen off. I need to glue that back on as a result of a little accident I had on the front there. Okay, so as you can see, it's pretty standard. There's times of ride height still. The front's dropped down a tiny bit with the shocks that we just put on there. What you can notice is when you push down on the bed, there is a little bit of flex between cab and the bed there. So my intention is to create some brackets of some sort that will just help strengthen this up. Because I think that will go a long way to helping to protect the chassis as well long term. So, okay, right, so as you can see, it all fits quite nicely in there. We've got the ESC where the transmission used to be. Cables route through underneath quite nicely. There's still room for the cables for the motor to move, and what you'll see is, again, I've used the extension brackets that I had for the C12 just to add some strength to the back here where I've mounted those two shocks, and they are simply from the back up onto the motor mount there. And it doesn't give a lot, but it does give enough play, just a bit of suspension on there. I don't think the angle of the shocks is particularly great, but it's the best I can do with the space that I have. Yeah, I don't really want to make too many changes to the bed on this and start cutting holes out and yeah, making shock towers inside here. I didn't really fancy all of that. So, right, just to show you how it goes in. So battery slots in, and quite simply we have got on the bottom here bullet connectors, and just push straight in. There we go, and we are good to go. It does work to hold the battery in, but I wouldn't exactly like to trust it, especially seeing as you're using the connectors, which are going to wear out quite quickly otherwise. But it does hold in there okay. So, intention to use the Velcro little slot just to strap the battery in, at least for now. Not pretty, but it will do the job. Okay, let's get it switched on. So it all seems to be working okay. Yeah, there is a little play in there, but not enough to worry about. Also, the wheels are lined up quite well, but whilst I had to drill out some adapters to fit the old Mardave axle, because it's originally threaded, so I cut the threaded parts off, put a flat on it for the grub screws to sit on for these adapters, but I did have to drill the adapters out and I didn't quite have a small enough bit for it, so they're pretty true but not 100%. I've got some extra adapters that I'll drill out properly. Okay. Yeah, so I've actually ordered some wide rubber rear wheels and tyres for this, as opposed to the foams. The foams are great, they're not going to balloon or anything, but I think at the sort of speeds that this will probably be doing, I shouldn't necessarily need them. I do intend to get out and try a speed run of this. I don't have a speed meter yet, so I'm just going to have to throw my phone in the bed. Conveniently there's room for that. Yeah, I'll try and get that done as soon as possible. I'm always a little bit cautious about going out at the moment for obvious reasons, but yeah, exercise is exercise. So, Okay, so there you have it. That's my 540 motor powered WPL D12. I'll try and get out and do some better videos of the car driving soon. Fingers crossed a speed run, and depending on how satisfied I am with the results, maybe we can throw a brushless setup in there. But at the moment, brushed is just fine. I forgot to mention, but there's a 19 turn Reedy quad mag in there, which is a decent motor left over from my carpet racing days. And yeah, again, it's got suspension on the back, got a little extra suspension on the front now. Everything turns and clears just fine. Yeah, any questions or comments, then stick them down below, and hopefully you'll subscribe, and I'll see you for the next video.